All right, next up is Antman. Now, this was another one like Guardians of the Galaxy that I think was a total risk and was like, and they waited for sure on purpose. They could have done, Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, and Ant-Man because that's like the legit five there for the Avengers. And they left Ant-Man out for a reason because that name is terrible. But once which is funny because they actually addressed that in the trailer for Ant-Man, the original trailer, and they took that scene out. It's something along the lines of is it too late to change the name? I think that's the line there. But yeah, it's a dumb name, and I like the character a lot, and I love this movie, but it was a risky thing, and they were just so in a groove at that point that they just couldn't fail. And they put this out and it made a good amount of money. I mean, it didn't kill at the box office or anything for Disney standards, but it did really well, enough to warrant a sequel and to continue to have him in films. And because it's a really great comedy and action movie, it blends the two perfectly. The comedy in this, because I remember, they had the first director on it, and he had a thing going down. He had his groove, and they pulled the plug on it, and it was kind of a huge blow. Like, oh no, like this is one of the first Avengers movies where we saw such problems behind the scenes, and we were like, oh no, we're gonna be able to figure this out. And here we go. We got Paul Stephen Rudd from Halloween 6, Curse of Michael Myers, as a superhero in the Avengers. That was just such a out of nowhere casting for me. I was like, Paul Rudd? They've been following this guy ever since Halloween 6, and freaking what's that other one? I can't think of the fucking name of it now. Doesn't matter. But yeah, this is just a really fun film. Let's get into the movie. Now, we got an opening sequence here in 1989 where you got Howard Stark and Peggy Carter, which was really cool to see. More connection to the MCU, and I love the continuity in this shit, bringing him back. And wow, the de-aging on Michael Douglas in this is fucking fantastic. Young Michael Douglas looks so good because we know what young Michael Douglas looks like, and it looked damn spot on. So Luis, I mean, can I say enough good about Luis? This character, Michael Pena's character, just fucking hilarious. Just the optimism, the constant smile on his face. You can't, and then of course, I mean, I gotta bring this up as well, but the stories were the highlight of this movie each time I've watched it. The first time I laughed so hard, especially with that last story when everyone's talking as if he's them. I love that they did that. I loved that they did that they made those actors make it look like they were sounding like him. Just such a funny fucking sequence. And so he gets out of jail, and I mean, I'm not going to try to get too political here or anything, but he gets fired from Baskin Robbins because they find out that he is, a convicted felon. And that's just, what do they think people are going to do? Like, when they get out of jail, if you can't go get a job, you can't make money, what do they think people are going to do? When they had a life of crime before, it's really all they knew. Then they go to jail, they lose everything, and when they get out, they have nothing, and no one will hire them, and they have to have this and that, and blah, blah, blah. They're probably going to go back to crime. It's a touchy subject, as I said, but it just, I don't know, watching it in this movie, this is not a great representation of it at all. Of course, he becomes a superhero and everything works out for him. This isn't some gritty crime drama fucking thing where some guy goes back to a life of crime and he gets killed and all. It's not like that. But it just reminded me in this, it's like, you can't even work at Baskin fucking Robbins when this guy's even on his side, like, oh, that's super cool. And, yeah, you've been a great employee, but sorry, we gotta fucking fire you. It's like, give the guy a goddamn chance. My God, it's Baskin fucking Robbins. Lord, just annoying. We find out that he's kind of like a Robin Hood. He went in, he took these places down that were ripping people off, and then transferred all the money back to these people. So yeah, I mean, look into his crime at least. Fuck, see that he did that and be like, you know what, we'll take this as an oversight. We'll look past it. We'll let you work here. That's pretty cool of you, but no, of course not. Corporate America, fucking assholes. All right, I'm done with all that. We got Darren Cross here, which I like. I like this actor a lot. I mean, obviously, I think that my first place that I remember seeing him was in House of Cards, and then in The Strain. But I like him. I like him as an actor, and I like him as a villain in this. Yes, MCU villains all up until later, like much later MCU entries, are mostly generic stock villains. But that said, I feel like they almost always get a fantastic actor to play these villains. And yes, it's a shame they don't give him a little more, but I feel like what they give this guy in this movie, what is his name? It's like Michael Rosenbaum or something. Is that? I don't know. I didn't write it down, but I think he does a damn good job with what he's given. And of course, he turns into Yellow Jacket later in the movie. And he wants to build a whole army of Yellow Jackets, but he can't figure out the exact way to shrink down a man. He can shrink down the suit, but he can't shrink down the man. Scott's daughter is fucking adorable. She is the cutest little kid. I mean, besides my kids, of course, because every parent's kids are the cutest kids ever to them. But his daughter is damn adorable. Oh man, it's so gross when he goes into the bathroom. He turns this guy into this little drop of like schmegma, and he like wipes him up and flushes him down the toilet. Like, ugh, it's gross. Just to think that your body, yeah, I mean, how are you gonna solve that murder? There's no body, there's no murder weapon, there's no sign of a struggle, there's no anything. So that would be tough. And even if the forensics team came in and just luminoled that area, they'd find like a drip of blood. It would not constitute enough to consider it to be a homicide or anything. They'd be like, oh, he probably fucking had a bloody nose, or, nothing. It would be like maybe he sliced his finger open, and it wouldn't even be that much. It was this big of a spot of where he would have been. And yeah, I mean, when Scott gets fired, he realizes that he will have to work for 377 days just to get a place in order to see his daughter again. Which, yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's just crazy. He's already been away from her for years of her life, and now he wants to come out and do the right thing, and he can't. It's bullshit. And then so Scott burgles, not breaking and entering or whatever. This is burglar. He's a cat burglar, or as one of the guys says, he's a pussy. I disagree. I think this is definitely the way to go if you're going to do it. I don't think you should, but yeah, without violence would be ideal. Finds out, goes in the safe, cracks the safe, goes in, takes the suit inside, and of course has to go home and try it on. And holy shit, when he goes and he shrinks down, I love the imagination within the shrunken realm, whatever you want to call it, because it reminds me of that Downsizing movie with Matt Damon or something. I mean, you could make a palace for yourself, a fucking palace with the greatest things you could ever imagine. You get an iPhone. You could get a fucking an iPhone, and it would be a movie theater screen to you. It would be so huge. You could make the most amazing house with the most amazing anything you could imagine for like a couple grand. Like a couple grand, you could have the greatest fucking setup, the greatest house, your space of land. You'd only need to own like 10 square feet of land, and you could have just, it would be so cool. That's what it's all about. The only problem I'd have with that, and the reason I would downsize, is because then you'd have to deal with bugs. Could you imagine a spider the size of your car? That is the scariest shit ever. Thank God we live on a planet where insects are this big. Or this big, which is one that crawled by during my Iron Man 3 review. Jesus, that thing was scary. But it would have been a lot scarier if it was this fucking big. But, alright, what the hell am I doing here? Now, the weight of his body and the weight of things seems to fluctuate in this movie. Because when Scott turns little, he like falls through floorboards and shit. Enough weight to break through things like that. But then he lands on a record. And it doesn't even skip the record, break the record player, nothing. He's just running around on the record. So you had enough weight to break through a floor, but you don't have enough weight to break a fucking piece of plastic that's this thin, or vinyl or whatever, that's this thin, really? Come on now. So the rules of Scott's abilities in this are all over the place. And the weight of things as they come out, because like when he turns that Thomas tank engine at the end up, like, it's weighted enough that when it hits, it is like devastating. It takes out cop cars, this and that. It's not light. So I guess when you're small, you're super light, right? But then you have the ability to punch like you're a full-grown man. Like, I don't know. You wouldn't have any weight behind it. So how does that all work? It doesn't. You got to not think about it. But I couldn't help myself but to think about it. And then, yeah, I mean, Scott breaks out of jail, which is finally resolved at the end of the movie by Bobby's character. I have it written down somewhere. Paxton. I don't need to see it. Paxton. I remember. Paxton is such a great guy. At the end of this movie, you find out what a great guy he is. And being a single father who, I am currently single, and so is the mother of my children, thinking about a man coming into my daughter's lives for her, with her, should I say. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. It's even terrifying for me to think about dating somebody and bringing them into my daughter's life for so many reasons. For them being like, I don't like her, because I'm telling you, man, if I'm with a chick and she's the greatest chick on earth, and my kids come to me, within reason, of course, and are like, we fucking hate her, like this and that, I will pick my kids. You will be gone. I will suck. But so there's that. But there's also, of course, what could happen, behind closed doors with this man that she brings into her life or whatever. And it's always nice to see moments like this where Paxton is running in to help her at the end, and he does so much for her. He's such a great guy, and you're like, oh, like as long as she gets with someone like that, I can deal with it. As long as he's a fucking great guy, then all is well. But that is one of the most terrifying things about being a single parent, is who your ex-partner, your co-parent, is going to bring into their lives to also co-parent with them. So of course it's going to hit a little close to home for me, because he has a young daughter and is this single man trying to figure things out. And so he breaks out of jail, and he comes and he wakes up, and he's surrounded by these ridiculously gnarly ants that have like the highest pain freaking whatever. Oh man, those things are terrifying. And he has to walk around them. Hell no, I don't like bugs. I don't think many people do, but they so yeah, we find out Hope had him arrested, which is a dick move, Hope. And Hank needs Scott to help because he doesn't want to send his daughter. And we find out that Hank has done it too many times, and he's too old, and he's taken too much of a toll that he can't do it. So he's his only fucking thing. He's the only hope he's got. So he thinks. Not sure why Scott is perfect for this job, but I guess it's because he can see that he's a good guy. He's got, he has a lot to lose. So I don't know. So of course we get a training montage here, and a lot of the comedy in that's pretty funny. And Scott, I think another thing that makes Scott really a good candidate for this is that he understands the relationship, the daddy-daughter relationship that's going on here, and he can understand why Hank wouldn't want to send Hope in. And he actually gets to resolve a lot of those issues by talking to Hope, by talking to them, and making them both understand where they're coming from. We find out that the mom went subatomic to save people, which we explore much more, obviously, in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And Hank cares way more about the suit than Scott's life. That is very apparent in here. And he takes on Falcon. It was cool to see Falcon in here. They had to grab some random Avengers character for him to take on, and it makes sense. It would be a guy that he could go into his suit and fuck with it, because if it was anybody, almost anybody else, I mean Iron Man, but you ain't gonna have Iron Man in here. So Falcon makes the most sense. And then they need the help of Luis and the other two guys, the like Russian computer guy and the driver, the getaway driver. All these guys are great characters, and I'm glad that they were all brought back for the second movie. I really hope they do make a third, trilogy Ant-Man movie. I would love to see that, because so far 2 in a row were great, and let's hope. And then the romance between Scott and Hope, it's cute. It's not overly done. It's not heavy-handed. And even when they have their first kiss at the end of the movie, it's not like shoved down our throat. It's not a fake. It's not anything. It's actually played for a laugh. And I like that. Like, the romance isn't really shoved down our throat. It's more subtle, and then when it happens off screen, and then Hank comes in and catches them and makes more of a joke out of it. So yeah, it's more of a fun, playful romance in the movie, and I think that balances well with the more comedic tone of the film. And I already talked about how hilarious Luis is. I like that Luis being able to knock out all these people in the movie is kind of addressed earlier in the movie when Scott is getting out of jail and he has to hit, or prison, he has to hit this guy, and they're hitting each other back. And Luis says that he was the only person that's ever been able to knock him out. So he obviously has a serious slugger there. To be able to knock someone as big as the dude out in the beginning of the movie. So it makes sense that he's able to knock these dudes out in one punch. Now, as I said, I kind of already touched upon the fact that you could build the most amazing house and all this stuff for you, but I do love all the little scenes when they're running around everywhere, especially the train fight at the end, which when I saw in the trailer, I wish I wouldn't have saw it in the trailer. It would have hit much harder in the theater, but when it is in here, it's so funny. It's so fun. And of course, we got Hydra in here. They're part of things going on in here. A lot of Hydra references. Anthony. Oh, poor Anthony. We don't get to know him too well. I think they could have played more into that, but I don't think they wanted to go for too much of a downer once Anthony does get killed. If they attached you too much to him, it would have been too much of a drop in tone, because it is more playful and more fun throughout. And if they really attached you to this character, it would have been more like the Honey I Shrunk the Kids ant death, which is super fucking depressing. This is more like it's sad in the moment, but it's not like fucking crying. They just show like one of his wings flying down, and it is sad, but it's not yet devastating. And Darren knew all along their whole plan to come in here and steal the suit. They did know all along. And Scott fights his way out of there. He really comes into his own in this moment. And Luis actually remembers to save the guard that he knocked out and left in the building, because the building's going to explode, and he actually goes back for the guard. I thought that was a great attention to detail that many other movies would have ignored outright. The fact that he actually goes back for the guy, I thought was cool. That it's even addressed. The tank, why make the tank on like the 5th floor? Okay, if you drove a tank through a building, for one, they don't move that fast. For two, it would have went straight down. And for three, even if it did go straight out like a fucking Fast and the Furious movie that, just completely ignores the laws of physics and how things drop and top heavy and all this bullshit, they would have been inside of that tank, and unless they were wearing those like ball suits that you get in to bounce around inside and not get hurt, they would have been smashed and fucking bloody. They would have opened up the top of that thing and they would have just been bloody messes inside of that tank. So why they had to be on the top, like the top floor, one of the top floors, or 4 stories up or whatever, is silly to me. It's just stupid. I don't know. And it plays with that weight thing. Like when it's small, it's the tank is like 2 pounds, right? That makes sense. But I don't know. It just, as I said, it plays around a little too much. But driving the tank off, stupid. Make it on the first floor, or make it on the second floor, and then it like kind of crashes down. But to make it like 4 stories up and it comes out of there at like 40 miles per hour is stupid. It is a stupid scene to me. But it's in a silly movie, so it's one of those just roll your eyes and take it kind of moments. How the hell did Darren get the Yellow Jacket suit on so fast in the helicopter? It's teeny, and then it's big, and it's on him all in about 2 seconds. How the fuck did he get in that thing so quick? I was just like, oh, okay, he's in the suit. All right, I guess, why not? And then after their big fight and everything, Yellow Jacket goes right after Cassie. So essentially, right when Yellow Jacket becomes Yellow Jacket, they get into a little fight. Scott goes into his thing, screws him up, throws him into a bug zapper, and then he goes for Cassie. And then they fight, and that's that. It is a very quick villain. The movie feels short, man. For a 2-hour movie, this movie feels like an hour long. So it does move along very fast. Then, as I said, we got the train set fight, and then Scott has to go subatomic, of course. Once they set that up in the movie, you know that's going to have to happen. And he goes down to save his daughter. He says, "I love you, Cassie," and he does it to save his daughter. And he comes back from the subatomic realm, which no one's ever been able to do. So that gives Hank the hope that he can get his wife out of there. We already talked about Paxton taking the ant in as a pet, the one that they blow up, and his daughter and all of them taking it in as a dog. Really cute. I already talked about Luis's final story being hilarious. We got the Stan Lee cameo in there, and Hope is given the wasp suit. So, yeah. And then we have the final sequence, which is kind of a little bit of a teaser for Captain America Civil War, which is the next movie. And I'm going to move on right over there to talk about it. So, see you in a second.